there, this is Lilia from the Help Yourself podcast, and today I have with me the wonderful Angela Trainer. Angela Trainer she's a hypnotherapist, an author, a teacher. She started hypnotherapy in Glasgow in 1985 when people didn't have a clue of the power. She now created the Harvest Clinic in Glasgow, which is a complementary holistic therapy paradise. And she also has a TED Talk. So Angela, thank you so much for coming with me and talking to me yet again.
I'm not coming with you. I'm actually online. I'm not there. I haven't come up north, but it's lovely, lovely, lovely to see you, Lilia. It's really great.
So you are looking fantastic, but I know that you have had your books and your clinic, I suppose, came out of your own private problems or experiences. So can you just talk us through how you came to open the Harvest Clinic in Glasgow?
Gosh, well, we're going way back. We're going back to graduating with a degree in psychology in 1980 from Glasgow University, and meeting, as I describe it, the handsome prince at the tender age of 20-something, falling in love and getting married. And a very short period after that, him falling in love with another princess and taking off and carrying on his white charger to another castle. And that left me devastated, utterly devastated. And I had a very forward-thinking GP who didn't just give me antidepressants to get me out of bed in the morning. He suggested I talk to someone, and I went to see a therapist. And there unfolded, there were things that in my childhood that I hadn't dealt with. There were things my wiring wasn't particularly suitable for this world of pain. And I always say he rewired me from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And I then decided that I wanted to train as a therapist. So I rewrote everything. My psychology degree came in really handy, because I'd originally thought I was going to be a music teacher, so it was a joint degree with music. So I had no knowing of why I'd picked psychology as an add-on, but it all unfolded as these things often do when you hear these stories later on. And I trained as a therapist then, and I gravitated towards clinical hypnotherapy because I wanted to find a therapy that would be very available to people. I realised that not everyone could afford the kind of therapy that I had. And hypnotherapy was really green at that stage, really new, really nobody knew what it was, to be honest. People would say things like, is it one of those baths that has bubbles in it? No, that's hydrotherapy. So I had to keep explaining what it was, and the only thing people knew for the first 5 years was that you could use it to stop smoking. They had no sense of the applications and all the different worlds of clinical hypnotherapy, including psychogenic infertility, insomnia, asthma, migraine, all these applications. And obviously I then went on to train in lots of other kinds of therapies, counselling, psychotherapy, and personal development. And I worked on my own for a long time from a wee flat in the south side. And then I got a room in Glasgow in Park Circus. And then it got busier, so I took on a locum when I went on holiday, then part-time. And then in 1994, it grew itself into the Harvest Clinic as we know it now, in St George's Road, right at Charing Cross, where we now have expanded to well over a dozen. At any one point in time, there can be a dozen to 20 therapists working from there in all different fields. So roughly half of us are working on the head stuff, the psychology, psychotherapy, counselling, cognitive behavioural therapies, all those kind of things, right down across the spectrum to my husband's also a yoga therapist and mindfulness teacher. We've got homeopaths, herbal, all right across the board, massage, aromatherapy, reflexology, acupuncture, etc., food intolerance testing. And it's just kind of grown and grown. And my role in there was therapist, but also I expanded into teaching. So I've lectured in my subject here and in Malaysia, Singapore and in Portugal, helped to set up centres in some of these places, and then got fed up with airports and decided that I was quite happy just to go and teach from the Caledonian Uni in Glasgow. And then I expanded again into running retreats from home. I live in the countryside, outside Kindorit, and I started running retreats from home and running Reiki weekends, and expanded more into the kind of, shall we say, more esoteric elements that frame all of these therapies. But my original training was pretty clinical and scientific and evidence-based, and gradually over the years I kind of softened and stretched out into the spiritual side of healing. So that's all the professional CV side of how things developed, and I've got that lovely centre in Glasgow that's now been shut for 3 months because of the lovely coronavirus. No clue when we'll be able to reopen at all at the moment.
You don't have a date.
So we don't have a date, and we are lobbying at the moment to say, you need to tell us where we fit in, because our insurance companies are nervous too about when people can actually start to put their hands on people again. So that's all the professional side. However, that isn't really the full story, because the underlining factors are my own personal journey, and that is that in the course of my own therapies and explorations and making myself safe in the world, I had to deal with childhood sexual abuse in my own childhood. And I'd hasten to add, not a direct family member, to protect others that may be, feel a bit in the mix here. So I had to deal with that. I also had to deal on that journey with sexual assault. I experienced sexual assault twice in my life of differing natures. I had to deal with the effects of that on a really physical, emotional and spiritual level. So I had quite a bit to contend with between the divorce, etc. And latterly on my colourful and interesting journey, I had to deal with the death of my father from pancreatic cancer, which most of us by this age and stage in life are having to deal with illness and the grief, I know you are, of a parent. It's just that I chose to actually write about my journey, and that seemed to spark another career development into writing and speaking about bereavement and grief and the journey of loss of whatever form. It doesn't need to be about losing a human or a relative. We all go through loss in our lives, and really they don't teach us about it or how to deal with it, how to process it.
Can I just, you talked about sexual abuse very openly there, and it's a very taboo subject. It's very difficult for not just women, but for men as well to admit that it's happened. So I think I would like at some stage, I don't want in this podcast to go into that, because that's a full podcast on its own. But I think for people listening that have experienced sexual abuse, they would be very interested to really get into some detail about how you let that go and how you managed to, because, obviously the work I do as well, we know that people hold on to that and it can cause all sorts of problems for their health and their happiness and their relationships. So let's make sure that we do that. So how the book came was really through the grieving, because like a lot of us, you start grieving when you know that your parent's going to die, when either you get told or you can see it. So the grieving starts while they're still here, doesn't it? Unless it's a sudden death.
Absolutely.
So tell us the story about how
grieving.
Yeah, sorry.
I think we lost each other then. I've got a wee blip. It's fine, it's gone now. It just said my connection was a bit unstable, but if you can see me, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about, tell us a bit about the book?
Yes, and how the book came to be, because it's a fascinating story.
Well, we talked in our wee introduction preamble before we came on live about how much I hate punting things, that I hate selling myself. I could sell you far easier, but this is the book. I'll break through. This is a book here. It's called Love Never Dies, and it's available on Amazon Kindle, Amazon paperback, and Audible books, so you can listen to it. And the reason I have no problem promoting this one is that the profit share goes to pancreatic cancer research, not to me.
Wow.
So that's the mechanics of it. The book itself was never meant to be a book. So the book was born again out of coincidences and circumstances, out with my ken. And I've always, in my workshops and my retreats and in my work with patients, I've always used therapeutic writing as a tool, stream of consciousness writing, unsanitized, unedited, uncensored writing, to access the deeper places, the hurting places within. And I knew the benefits of that myself. So when I've always journaled, always, I need to have regular bonfires to get rid of them so that nobody ever finds them if I get knocked down. And I know the benefits of it. So when my father was diagnosed, my father was an extremely fit guy. He was 80 years of age, but he'd run every marathon there was to run. He was still cycling, golfing, running, walking 3 hours at a time. He was fit as a flea, and the last person anybody would have expected to get sick. Lived a really healthy life, and at the age of 80 he got pancreatic cancer, and he was given a diagnosis of 3 to 6 months and told that there were some treatments he could have, but that they would extend his life by weeks and maybe a couple of months. And he said, no, I've had a good life, I'm 80, I've done everything that any guy could think in his wildest dreams he would like to do in his life. I wish I could live for another 100 years, but I don't want to spend the time I've got in hospitals, in clinics, with my head down the toilet. So if you can manage my pain, if you can help me with any discomfort, I would like just to say I've now got 3 to 6 months to fully embrace the important things. And of course, those important things, as we all know now, all boil down to one thing, and that is relationship, people. And the people who he wanted to spend time with were not the extended cast of thousands. It was the people close to him that he wanted to spend his time with, and in nature, and in prayer, because he was a great meditator and had a tremendously powerful faith in a higher power. He wasn't a conventional spiritual person. He was very much a bit like me. I call myself a spiritual vagrant. I roam around, and I don't like wearing one badge. So he embraced his death. His favourite author is Ram Dass, who wrote lots of books on aging and dying and all of it. And we used to have great conversations, and we went up to Iona. In fact, at one point, we went away for a weekend for his 80th birthday. I took him, just him and I. We'd never done this before. And we went up to Iona and we spoke about death and dying for 3 days. Now, this was before we knew about his diagnosis. This is the year before, 9 months before his diagnosis. We had these long conversations about dying and death and getting older. And we were very, very connected at a spiritual level. He introduced me to meditation way back in the early 80s. And so he got his diagnosis, and he set about embracing the people in his life, making his preparation, prepared his own funeral to within a hair's breadth of detail, what hymns he wanted, who he wanted. I had to sing at it, but we recorded it. Thankfully, I didn't do a Bette Midler on my knees in front of the casket. He had everything planned to a T. And we went on this journey, and he lived for 6 months, and I saw him every single week. But as we got closer, I saw him every day. We moved up and stayed in the local hotel for that last couple of weeks. So I was with him when he drew his last breath, when he died.
I know, I mean, that's really, it's a privilege, isn't it? But so you
Oh,
said he taught you to meditate.
yeah.
Who taught him to meditate?
He took me to the meditations that he was going to. So he was interested in yoga, he was interested in Christian meditation, he was interested in yogic meditations, and it was he who said, do you want to come along to this group? And in fact, introduced me to my husband,
Really?
who was also part of this meditation group. My husband today, Graham, who I call the handsome king, not the handsome prince, the handsome king. So I went through this journey with my father over the 6 months, and I wrote everything, raw and real, what I was feeling, my terrors, my anger. How dare he?
Yeah.
You know, he was supposed to have my back. This is my big dad who's always been there for me. How dare he leave the stage? All these feelings and emotions that, of course, I'd always studied and known and worked with people. And, you know, I'd had grief before. I lost my dogs. I lost my gran. I'd had grief. I just hadn't quite had the grief level that I was experiencing going on this journey where we knew it was going to happen. And it was raw writing. So I shared a couple of wee things with friends who were going through issues with loss and grieving. And they started saying, can you send me more if you get any more? This has really helped me. And I was quite confused about why my stuff would help them, but it seemed to. And then it expanded. A friend asked, could she share it with a friend? And then someone said, could you not collect some of these and put them in a wee booklet? And it, you know, the pressure started from outside of myself. And eventually, a friend who's a writer got in touch and said, can I collect all your posts? And I was like, what for? She had to put them into a kind of wee booklet, because you might want these later on. Because by now I was sharing them on Facebook with friends who'd said, you really should put some of these out there. This is actually quite inspiring stuff. And I personally really couldn't quite see the value in it being for anyone else, because it was my story. But I didn't realise how much of what I was experiencing was things that people were also experiencing, and people who'd lost people 20 years ago were coming on to me privately and saying, this is helping me today because I realised I didn't grieve properly. I realised that I had buried stuff. Could you send me more? So I started posting on Facebook, thinking that was it, until Monica said, can I collect these together? And she did. And that took a while. And she sent them on to me, and they lay in the drawer for 3 months. I couldn't even pick them up. Because by this point, obviously, we've moved on. My father has died. And I just couldn't get near them. And she, a lover, badgered me. Have you read them? What did you think? Do you not think you should do something with them? Do you have any idea of the value? You know, there's golden nuggets in there. And I'm telling another friend about her badgering me. And he says, I know somebody that would edit that for you. You don't need to go through it all and put yourself through that. He would guide you to what to do with it. And the next thing I know, I get to meet Mickey, who has just lost his best friend to cancer, who has been asked to write his autobiography, which he can't really go near yet because it's too sore, but who, God knows why, decides that this is one step removed and he can manage my job. And he starts editing the book, and we worked together for a year. And it was going through the grieving process at another level, once removed. So the book is getting written. The book is due to come out in March, April time of last year. And in the March, I came back from a fabulous holiday to find the letter in the hall that says, can you come and do another mammogram? Your first one's not looking too hot. So I go to Royal Exchange Square in Glasgow with my husband, and the rest is history. You know, the doctor says, yes, there's something there. We don't like the look of it. We need to move you quickly. And I end up going for a mastectomy, chemotherapy for 4.5 months, and radiotherapy, 15 sessions of radiotherapy. So from April until December last year, I was in treatment for breast cancer. And the fascinating thing is that when I was, just as I came out of hospital after my mastectomy, the box of books, the first actual hard copy was sitting on my kitchen table, and the timing wasn't lost on me.
Yes.
And I then began, well, I had already started writing about my journey with cancer because it was just part of my journaling. And I kind of knew what was going to happen this time. I thought, I know I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to share stuff. People are probably going to say, do you know what? This has been kind of my friend. This has been helpful, my sister. And, we're now on that journey. So the second book is called Greet, Pray, Love. No idea when it'll actually get finished because I'm still writing it. But that's taken a similar trajectory, that it's actually journal outpourings of the insights and the sharings along the way to help witness and accompany other people that might find themselves on that journey, and also to share some things I wish I had known at the start or halfway through. There were a lot of things I found out as I was going along. It would have been great to have a resource to point me towards things that I had to kind of research and find out myself.
Can I just ask you there, because clearly, I mean, there's such a high instance of cancer, and getting that diagnosis, I think, is, a real shock to the body and to the mind. And obviously for somebody like you who's surrounded by holistic people, did you feel any pull either way? How did you feel about, how did you make your choices? Because, often, even if people want to try a holistic way, they've got the family saying, no, take the treatment. They know what they're doing. Did you have the opposite experience, or what experience? Can you tell us about how you made that choice?
My friend Liz Harland died several years ago from breast cancer, and Liz had 3 months, she reckoned, because all her family had managed 3 months with chemo and radio. Mm-hmm. So I knew, and she lived for 5 years, and she lived, as she said, the best 5 years of my life, because she got rid of the energy vampires and the hangers-on in her life. Mm-hmm. She totally changed what she was doing from what she felt she should be doing to make a living to things that would fill her heart with joy. She would say her therapy was laughter, and that what healed her was hypnotherapy, Reiki, and creativity. So she became the artist that she'd always been, making jewellery, making ceramics, and she lived for 5 years. Now, the breast cancer got her in the end, yeah? She was further along than all of this amazing healing could unpack. But she had 5 good years, and she was pretty confident that as she'd watched everyone in her family going through what they'd gone through, but the type of cancer she had, she reckoned she would have had 3 months, 6 at the most. Yes. And she had those 5 good years. She didn't see it as a failure. She didn't see it as that she hadn't tried hard enough. So she was a walking miracle. We had doctors, consultant pals, and guys in training with us who were saying, what is going on there? She should not be here. How is she doing this? So I knew, and I know that that is possible. So it was very interesting for me that when it came to my diagnosis and I listened to the doctors, now bear in mind, this is quite some time ago we're talking about. And secondly, when her mother, auntie, cousins had their breast cancer, things were different. Right? We didn't know as much as we know now. The treatments were different. The support systems were different. Mm-hmm. We now have a Maggie Centre in just about every hospital in the country. All these complementary therapies are available to you from day one, free. So I was going for reflexology, massage, and free as a bird. Everything is laid on for you now. If you want to avail yourself of that, you don't actually have to pay for it. Mm-hmm. But I also knew that there were things I could pay for that weren't available there. So when I got my diagnosis, I paid great attention to the people who were telling me their view of the allopathic conventional medicine of my cancer. And then I had to do what I believe we all have to do. I had to listen. And actually, one doctor friend of mine, Dr. Mary Frame, she's a great pal. Mary worked in the hospice up at, what's it called? Marie Curie Hospice up at Springburn, where we used to run our courses. And Mary said to me right away, "You're no Liz. That's all I'm going to say to you. You're no Liz." Mary's an extremely capable Reiki master, a wonderfully spiritually connected woman, and that went in like a hot knife and butter. That you don't make your decision on what worked for Liz, what Liz does. Liz didn't have the same cancer as you. We're not at the same point in time. So I very, very quickly got the message back from my normal ways of tuning into what should I do, that I realised very, very early on, there is no such thing as cancer. You can't blanket. She's got cancer, you've got cancer, this is what you should do for cancer. Because there isn't a thing called cancer. There are gazillions of different combinations of types of things that we group under the term cancer. And there is no one size fits all. There is not one system that will work for everyone. And I'm as different as any, see that thumbprint? There isn't another one in the world and never has been. So I'm completely unique. So I have to find the still point within me, to find my intuition, to listen in to, if it's not my time and if this is not my way of departing, because I believe that for some people it is their time to go, it is their way to go. They're teaching other people, they're learning how to receive love. But if this is not my time to go, because I know that no matter what I did, it wouldn't make any difference. I could do all the things in the world, I'd get hit by a number 10 bus. Then let me clearly, loud and clear, get a signal inside of me that tells me this is the right way to progress. And what I listened to very quickly was that the really amazing, clever people involved in the NHS. There were people I wouldn't have chosen to have round for dinner or be my pal, but they knew their stuff. They knew their stuff. Some of them
felt safe.
Quite left brain. I knew they knew what they were doing. I knew that their hearts were in it, that they were not in this type of medicine for nothing. They were vocational. Who would choose to work in that field? It wouldn't be me. And whilst they might not understand a lot of my way of looking at the world, they certainly knew about their own. And I had to learn to get out my ego and step into their world and say, okay, well, what would you do here? And what was it your sister? Of course, they can't answer that, but then they go in and they kind of in a roundabout way do. What if it was you? And they would explain and justify the pros and cons. And most things are done by percentages. If you do this, the percentages say that you might get a 2% increase in your chances going up, a 5%. So in my head, I learned early on that something that was going to be really awful, that might only give me, 1% or 2% of a difference, might not be the end of the world, but things that would give me anything more than that would accumulate and add up over time. So you become a bit of a gambler. You start saying, well, okay, I'm going to feel, pardon me, like shit for the next 6 months or even year, or even some of the symptoms that I still live with might go on for a couple of years. Some of them might go on for the rest of whatever life I've got left. But is it worth it? Am I willing to take the chance? And also, I know a lot about repairing the body, so I know that the cells in this body will not be the same cells in 7 years' time. And I am not the same body I was 7 years ago. So if I can, balance the complementary, the alternative health systems with, because I know all about that, I know some about that, with conventional medicine, then I have to be increasing my chances here. And that's what I did. I listened to them and they said, you have cells in one of your lymph So there's a wee movement there. This isn't the same as your pal that had a wee P and it was a PR2 negative. You're an ER, so there's ER, PR, HER, they've all got numbers and they're all different. And some of them are more aggressive and faster than others. And some of them will have moved to another level or stage than others. And some of them, you might have a bit more time to do things to boost the immune system and all these wonderful things. But there's others where you see, don't mess about here. Yeah. Get that out your system. That needs to come out. It's like if you've got a tooth that's needing a wee filling, you'll get away with a filling. If it's rank rotten, you could die of septicemia. Get it out. So we got it out. We took it out. We took the lymph node away. And then we had to progress to the decision about chemotherapy. And that was, do you now know enough to justify putting all these things into your body? Well, we know that the yogis used to drink battery acid to show us, not to show off. They used to walk in hot coals, used to lie in beds of nails to say, look, this has a large part to play in how you respond to that. So don't get me wrong, it's not for the faint-hearted. I wouldn't choose to go through it again. It's a tough road. But Lilia, I learned an awful lot on that tough road. There were things that I could never have learned in any training course, book, or conversation. So I'm not writing it off as, God, I wish I could wipe that 4.5 months, because there were fruits and gifts came from it. And, total surrender. Really, really having to deal with a body that was not my own, did not feel my own. And having to be a complete and utter burden and baby on my husband, on my family, and in my relationships. And I know it's going to sound like a daft thing to say, but I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I would love to have been able to learn all the things I learned without going through it. Then I would say, wipe it, let me not have that, let me not carry that cross. But it opened a whole other view of the world. And I managed to get through that, and then to hit the radiotherapy, which is not anything for anybody to worry about in terms of pain or discomfort. A wee bit of discomfort, but it's tiring, very tiring. So I kind of wasn't prepared for just how much healing I had to do. So that's all the clinical stuff. And I'd say to anybody, get quiet, sit down, listen, talk to people. Don't shut any doors right away. Listen to the reasons. Add up, stack up the numbers, and then make your decision based on what you feel inside. You have a wisdom inside of you that will say, I think this is the right thing to do. I think we don't need to actually take that medicine, because that's, so steroids in me were a nightmare. I became insane on withdrawal from steroids. We had to cut that down to nothing. But my specialist, my consultant, was willing to listen to me saying to him, see this chemo you're giving me, the neuropathy, I can't feel my feet, the pins and needles, you're killing me. And he said, well, kind of that's what we're trying to do. But we don't want to completely kill you. We just want to kill bits of you. And I said, well, I think you're killing me. And he listened. And he said, okay, we can reduce this by 20%. Do you want me to do that? I listened inside and I said, yeah, I don't want to be crippled for the rest of my life. Quality of life, quantity of life, you're making all these decisions. And I would say to anyone facing any kind of medical decisions is, they wouldn't be watching this if they were going to forget all the other things. So I was using homeopathy. I was using herbal medicines. I was using food intolerance testing to make sure where my body was with all the changes. So we have such a wealth of people here. You've got Caroline Miller, one of the top homeopaths in the country, was giving me remedies to deal with any sickness from the chemotherapy. Dr. David Riley, ex-homeopathic hospital. Dr. David Riley was guiding me generally in my whole mind, body, spirit stuff. He's qualified in just about everything you care to mention. Helen Boyle was giving me reflexology specifically, she'd worked in the hospice for my symptoms. I was having manual lymphatic drainage reflexology from Marion McAdam. Irene McCabe, who I know you know, was helping me with my supplements. Janice Klein, who we spoke about earlier, was helping me with my probiotics, my gut microbiome. She's a really highly qualified food scientist. So she was teaching me how to make my kombucha, how to do my sauerkraut, so I get my live probiotics in my body. So I was full-time watching everything that was going in. Then
that's some support team you had.
Yeah, I was very lucky, and I didn't know about all of these things at the start. But they're the things that I would really encourage people to say. You don't need to do everything. I didn't do them all of the time. I was very, very lucky that I had access to the information, but and I will share that in the book. But you just need to listen to, what do I need? I needed a lot of different things. And a lot of these things I was doing before it anyway. I was eating reasonably well. We have juiced every single day since I got my diagnosis. We drink Kermit in a blender, right? It's green, it's gruesome, it's disgusting, and I drink half a pint of Kermit, kale, you name it, wheatgrass, spirulina. It's all in there every morning, and I get that down me. I've been taking turmeric shots. You need to find out the ones that light up inside of you, because you can't take everything. You'd be exhausted.
Taking stuff just because they want to do something without really understanding why, and that's why it's really nice that when you've got guidance. But I think the big thing that you're saying over and over is, you kept checking in. And that was one of the things, that Kelly Turner's research categorically showed. She said no matter what age, race, sex, the one thing that everybody said that she was really astounded by was they said they listened to their intuition, or a voice, that spoke to them. And I think, that can be, obviously you've got a phenomenal background to understand and know how to do that anyway for everything before this happened to you. But for people that are just diagnosed, it's like PTSD. It's just like, whoa, and you go into this state of fear. And so then trying to go inside and listen can be very challenging, if not impossible, for some people. So I think that's a really...
you're spot on. And what I would say is, we all know our intuition. When you're around somebody who pulls you down, who brings you down, who leaves you feeling stabbed, who leaves you feeling as if they poured a bucket of, we'll say water, but I could up the game on that, up the ante, a pail of quiche over the top of you, and often they don't necessarily say anything aggressive and insulting. They can be very sweet, but you just know that something inside is telling you, you just dumped on me there, you really did, or you stabbed me with jagged needles. I was left feeling beaten up by the end of that interaction. And that's the bit we're looking for, is now can you turn that ability to know people who uplift you, who bring you joy, who are curious and interested about you as a person, who are supportive, who wish you well. And it might be a wee man at the bus stop, but when you leave them, you feel good. And it's like, can we learn to develop that intuition to, I don't like the Kermit in a blender, right? You would say, oh, why are you taking that? You're ignoring your intuition. No, but see, when I drink it, within a minute or two, I know my body's singing. Yes. My body's saying, thank you.
Your cells are loving it.
It's not all about, it's got to feel good. The chemotherapy didn't feel good. I didn't want to go, but a part of me inside was saying, Yeah, and some days it's raining when you're out walking and you're not enjoying your walk, but you know it's good for you. So keep going.
I think
Walk through the
that's a
storm.
great point, because the mind is so tricky. And I know when I was teaching myself to go in the cold water, there wasn't a part of me when I woke up wanted to go out in the dark and the rain and get cold, but I knew, and I thought, I know how to set new neural pathways, and I could hear all the reasons and excuses. Oh, you can do it tomorrow, all of that. So I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's finding what really is your intuition, what's your ego or your mind saying, I don't want to do it. Then you have to be very honest. Do you find that? You have to really, really be so clear and honest with yourself.
Yeah, we can all bullshit ourselves. We know that. We can all give ourselves a million reasons not to do stuff. And, don't get article when you think that I danced into that intravenous chemo ward. There were times I was on my knees, I was crying my eyes out. If I don't want to give the impression that I'm some kind of hero that just sailed through it like an angel. It's a hard road. But there's lots of people have hard roads with their bodies and their treatments and their pain. And, not all of them are physical. Lots of people are going through their lives with cancer of the mind. They're going through their similar journeys to what I went through, and no one ever sees, the effects.
Yeah.
They're just having to struggle on a daily basis with the same things that I was having to deal with. But mine was very kind of public, and I got lots of support, and lots of sympathy, and lots of love. If you said what helped the most, the love, the cards, the plants, the wee gifts, and it wasn't about the value. It was people you hardly had seen for years coming out and sending you a cancer cushion for under your mastectomy scar. Just beautiful. The love is what reset the whole thing. That if I ever had days where I thought I didn't have a reason to live and I didn't know if I wanted to live, something came through the door, the post, or whatever, a smile, somebody that had visited, my pal appeared from Australia at the foot of my bed. I didn't know he was in the country. These things are the things that heal, but not everybody's got that, Lily. And these people that are out there with things that I just call it now cancer of the mind, that they don't have a physical condition or symptom, but they're dealing with these same things and the same levels of pain, and nobody is picking it up. And I think that's really important.
Absolutely, it's priceless, and that's again back to the Heal Scotland message, is the community and the altruism that heals, feeling that you're part of it. And because obviously, it's a lonely journey, but it can be, because you can only you can go through it. But as long as you've got that cushion of people holding the space for you, then you can get up the next day and you know that it will pass. But out of that experience, we're going to have greet, pray, love, which is going to be such a huge, powerful tool for other people. And I know that it can be hard to talk out about these things, and people that will watch and never comment or like or anything like that are still getting a benefit. Sometimes you walk into somebody in the street years later and then they tell you, you really helped me. So thank you for that. Now I want to talk as well about your TED Talk, because I know you did that talk, which was off the charts powerful, and you were just like, what, a week out of treatment?
2 weeks out of radiotherapy. They asked me at the start when I wasn't long diagnosed, because we thought I might just need a mastectomy. Listen to that. And I thought I'll be fine by November. Oh, look, I'm not. Look, you need to get this out, and that's it. We'll go on with it. And of course, then we get into chemotherapy. But Maureen DeHaskaway, who was the producer of the whole event, said, look, if you need out of it, we've got fillers, don't worry. But if you can be there without, so I literally was like Bambi on ice walking onto that stage, because I had on high heels that I hadn't had on for a year, and my knees were, my legs were still like jelly, because I'd been lying down mostly for 9 months, not all the time, but for a long time I had been lying down, and there were 200 people at the event. It's gone, you know, these things obviously get seen by an awful lot of people.
Yes.
And I knew the responsibility. So I managed to do it again, and I don't take credit for all of it. I do the work, but I know there's an awful lot of help comes from upstairs that just comes through you at the time that you need it to shine. So it was called Bold and Brilliant Women, and that was the title of the day. And it was great because I was completely bald. I mean, billiard ball, baldy in November. And my first line was the fact that I said that I had got the title of the day wrong. I thought it was Bold and Brilliant, and I knew I had at least one of the qualifications to be there. And so it was just a great day of supportive women. You know, women get a bad press for kind of scratching each other's eyes out and gossiping, and I know we can do all of that. We've all got it in our bitch, but me too. But this was a day of love, like not romantic love or huggy-duggy love. It was a day of solidarity like I'd never experienced before. There were 200 women there who were just soaking up what it meant to be a woman and sharing from their hearts and supporting each other. And I think I got an injection of, you know, life that would last me 10 years from that day, rather than it depleting me. So it was an interesting experience. I'm glad I did it. I still don't have a clue how I did it, because I was 2 weeks after the end of my radiotherapy. But it's been really rewarding. And you know, in that, one other thing I was going to say about the cancer thing was reframing it. I reframed the word cancer into chancer. You know, and people say, well, is that because it's a dirty wee chancer and it's trying to take advantage of you? And I said, no, you get another chance. You know, I didn't get a heart attack or a stroke like my friend, a wee priest that I know who died last night. He had a heart attack, you know, bump, that's it going. That didn't happen to me. I got given another chance, and I got time, even if it hadn't worked out. I got time to let the people that I love know that I love them, which I think I do anyway. I got time to think about, oh gosh, what if it had been, you know, what are the things I would regret not having done? What is it in my life I need to change? Who are the people I need to kind of edge out of my life? Because I'm not feeling good things here. What are the things that I'm doing that I feel I'm squandering my time on? So you know, the Greek Pray Love book that you're saying that I'm working on just now is very much based on the book Eat, Pray, Love, around that idea of, you know, what do we do? How do we deal with the losses in our life? You know, why is greeting important? Is it? Prayer, what do I mean by prayer? I don't mean join a religion and kneel down, you know, and join your hands together. But do I have a connection with something outside of myself, something greater and bigger than me? And what does love mean? And the love in that day that you're talking about, the TED Day, was phenomenal, and it's continued. And I hope that was the message, because my talk was called The Curse of Perfect. Are you ready for love? And it was based on that message of, you know, sometimes we think of love as just something that happens between a man and a woman, or a woman and a woman, or a man and a man. But actually, we really need to look at the healing power of love in its biggest, widest sense. And that's what that day was about for me. You're absolutely terrified to cough these days. Terrified to cough or sneeze. We're going to have a new treatment called sneezophobia and coughophobia. We'll need to start treating people with hypnotherapy for that.
It's so true.
Oh, I coughed.
Now that point, your last point there, which I think is absolutely where I've come to as well, is that the love, and again, it's one of Kelly's steps, is the belief in something higher than yourself, which also takes a bit of the weight off your shoulders, because you're not alone. And, you know, all the work that Joe Dispenza is doing, it is really about opening the heart and trusting and surrendering to the divine, the universe, God, Chi, whatever word, everybody's got a different word for it. But I think the kind of healings that we know are possible to happen come, and there's a lot of faith healings. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like to talk about that because they don't actually believe it in some level, but it is about faith ultimately, isn't it? And that feeling that you're always...
Yeah, it's that feeling of connection.
Yes.
You know, so when some people hear us talking about God, Maya, Gaia, love, light, whatever you want to call it, I tend to talk about love because that tends to offend less people. But I'm just as happy with the word God.
Me too.
They have a whole load of baggage with it from the past, and that tends to be the thing that switches people over, gets in the way.
Yes.
But it's more than the idea of the man or the woman sitting on the cloud, looking down, judging, and saying, you can get in, you're not, you're bad, you're good. For me, it's not just about this external off-planet God, as Carolyn Mace calls it. It's about, have I got my connection? I am not separate from that God. You are that. You know, be still and know that I am. You have this constant connection, and it doesn't shut you off.
Yes.
But you can deny it.
Yes.
You can deny it entry. So it's like, the way I describe it, it seems to resonate, it certainly resonated with me, is if we think of love or God or Maya, Gaia as the ocean, then I am a wave in that ocean. Mm-hmm. And I pop up as Angela in my lifetime, and I'm a separate wave from you. There's Lilia's wave over there. Hi, Lilia. And I pop up as a wave, and in my lifetime, I spill onto the beach, and I go, hello, here I am, look at me. And this is my ego, my personality. This is what makes me totally different from you, Lilia. I am not you. Mm-hmm. But you know what? You cannot separate you or me from the ocean. Because even if I dry up on that beach and you say, ha, you've died, you've disappeared, you cannot kill energy. It just transforms and changes. So that wave on the beach would dehydrate, would, you know, the heat from it would radiate up, and it would become a wee cloud and join another cloud, and it would fall as rain back into the ocean. Mm-hmm. So I am never separate from that ocean, even if I think I'm washed up on the beach and I'm all by myself. Mm-hmm. I'm simply transforming and coming back as the ocean. And, you know, I can be in that ocean and think, where's the ocean? I'm having a bad day. There's no ocean. I can't see it. But actually, it's never let me go. I'm part of that ocean at all times. And if I get too much into my ego, which I do regularly, I can think I'm the fly holding the ceiling up. And I get miserable. I get tired really, really easily. I get drained. I can feel really lonely and isolated. And I can look at Lilia. Lilia's got a big tsunami going over there, and I'm only a tiddly wee wave, and I'm not happy about that because she's having all the fun, and I'm away out here on my own, and it's hard being me. The minute I recognise what I'm doing and I say, oh, ego's too much in charge here. I'm far too isolated and I'm not in my connection with the ocean. The minute I drop back down into the ocean and just be held, just float along for a while as part of the ocean. You don't need to be, I want to be a tsunami. I want, you know, look at me. The minute you just drop down and surrender, the ocean carries you and you become another beautiful wave, and you may well end up a lovely, big, huge tsunami wave, but you won't lose your connection to the ocean. Yeah. And that for me is it. Not about, do I believe in a God out there that's going to give me all the things I want, like Santa, you know, that God is Santa. Make a wee list, God, here's what I need. But that actually is about recognising that ocean is me. I am God, and I know that sounds wild for some people.
It does.
And I'm being God in my day.
Yeah. And it is that connection, you know, that, and I think right now with the COVID thing going on, to, you know, when judgment of other people's reactions, behaviours, or lack of reaction sometimes, when the ego comes in and wants to tear them down and annihilate them because you think, what is wrong with you? It's like that takes you away from the connection again, doesn't it? Because then you're saying you're separate from me, and I'm better than you, and you need to, you should behave like this. And I just discovered that Jordan Peterson, and I'm just loving the way he talks about it, the red and the blue, and the people that are over here and the people that are over there. And I think we're really seeing that polarity now. But for me, it's been a great time to catch myself judging and resisting and just going, that's you cutting yourself off from the flow. It's like it's just you suddenly go and you literally strangle and you stop the energy from coming through, and it's just like, I need to let go again. So I've been doing a lot of letting go.
Because I want to rule the universe, that my ego does. I want to control everything. I want to put everybody right. I want them all to applaud me all day, every day. I don't want the hassle of anybody disapproving of me. So, the ego wants all those things, and you're absolutely right. It's the tightness. It's how we contract and separate, and then it's what are all the things that help me to loosen off and let go and recognise I'm not in control of some things, but I'm not in control. I never was, and I never will be. Exactly. And I'm being, this next breath, that's not under my control. That's gift. Absolutely. That's pure gift. Absolutely. And have I got this? Have I mastered this? No, that's going to be a lifetime journey. Do you know? But the 12-step programs have they've got a great line, live and let live. That's the one I'm still working on. Live and let live, as long as you're doing it my way.
Well, I think on that live and let live note, that is absolutely perfect way to finish this. And thank you so much for all that, and for being so open. And as I say, that you're helping people, and even just to hear that you did cry. And also I think the very powerful tool of therapeutic writing, just get it down in some way. Some people paint, some people run. There's always a way for us to really utilize the stress, the chemicals that the body's creating. It's like, right, okay, let's put this somewhere, rather than trying to put a lid on it and turning ourselves into a pressure cooker, literally. So when we can dissolve that and cry, as you said, because
and scream sometimes,
yes, are just really hard. And then you're ready, obviously, for the next adventure. So thanks a million, and it's great to see you looking so well, and I will definitely see you soon. As soon as we're allowed, I'll be coming to see your house and your garden. And then you need to hook me up with your friend as well, Janice
Klein. I will, absolutely. So is that us done?
That is us done.